Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you are all fine and must be enjoying with your life. Students, today we will discuss another important topics. In our today's lecture, we will discuss about the operations strategy in a global environment. So students, this is again a very important topic, and the trend of globalization, in the last two decades have been increased, and the operations managers and the different organizations are always interested to deal with this sort of global trend. So we will discuss the globalization issues with respect to the operations management, and especially how we can have the different strategies related to the globalization. Then students, in our today's lecture we will also discuss about the importance of the human resources, and again how these human resources can be the competitive advantage for the organizations, and how the relationship between the different human resources and the working environment within the organization can affect the overall working environment as well as the productivity of the organizations. There is another very important aspect we will discuss in our today's lecture, that is the job design, that how the different characteristics of the jobs can affect the performance of the employees and ultimately the performance of the overall organization. So this is the agenda for our today's lecture. Class, in our today's lecture we will discuss about the different reasons to be globalized, that what are the reasons and what is the need of globalization for the different organizations. Then we will discuss important issues in operations strategy. We'll also discuss different elements of operations management strategy, that is how we can have the good strategy if we want to operate in that globalized environment. Then most importantly, we will discuss 4 important international operations strategies. We'll also discuss some of the advantages and their disadvantages. And when we talk about the human resource strategy, we'll have to talk about the labor planning. So what is the importance of labor planning in human resource perspective, and what are the different methods and approaches we can use for labor planning. Then students, we will discuss the different work schedules, that what are the alternatives for the work schedules in the organizational settings. Then we will discuss the job design, that how we can motivate the employees and how we can improve the organizational performance by better designing a job. And of course, in job designing, we'll have to discuss about the job characteristics, that what are the different characteristics of a particular job which can be helpful to motivate the employees towards the right direction for the organization. Then we will discuss about the benefits of teamwork, and in the end we will discuss another strategic issue, that is the ethical issues. Now students, in the last 2 decades you must have noticed that now the most of the organizations are moving towards the other foreign countries for the production of their products as well as the services. And you can see that sometimes it may not be feasible to operate in the domestic country, and now it is not the case that the production of your products and services may always be prevailed in your own domestic country, and most of the countries are moving in the global era for the production of their products and services, as well as for the installation of their production facilities, and sometimes the distribution outlets are also there in the different other countries. Now there are the reasons for that. You can see that every company wants to have the sort of advantage like the economies of scale, and they want to target the global demand for the specific products and the services they are producing. So these are some of the reasons for which the organizations will have to globalize their operations. So let's discuss some of the important other reasons that why the organizations are globalizing their operations. Now the first reason, students, is the reduction in the cost. Now reduction in the cost with respect to the labor or with respect to the taxes or tariffs. So in that international environment, when you decide that your production facility may be in a particular other country, then there may be the cost advantage with respect to the labor wages, or with respect to the location, or with respect to the availability of certain raw material which may be cheap and which may be readily available in that particular country. So all of these factors can give you a very important cost advantage. Another important scenario is that in the perspective of different international agreements, you can always have the lower taxes and tariffs if you want to enter into the other countries for the sale of your products and services. Another important factor or the reason why the company is going to be globalized is to improve the supply chain. That is again related to the availability of the raw material or the availability of the unique resources which may be available at a particular location in a country. And of course, most of the organizations are interested to provide the better goods and services, and they want to satisfy the demands of the global customers. And for that particular reason, it is very important for the different organizations to understand the requirements of the particular customers, because you know, when you operate globally, you'll have to take into account the cultural aspects, the economic effects, the political aspects, as well as many other aspects, so that you can be profitably operate in that particular environment. Then with the help of international human resource available in the foreign countries, it will always be good for the different organizations to learn and to improve the operations. In this way, the different organizations are always sometimes keen to attract and retain the global talent, and they want to have a sort of diversity environment so that there may be a sort of competitive advantage over the competitors. So these are some of the reasons to be globalized, and you can see among these factors, there are some factors which are more tangible than the other intangible factors. Like if you are interested in the in-time delivery, or if you are interested in the reduction of cost, then this is the most tangible factor, and we can always have the different sort of calculations that how much will be able to reduce the cost, and how much we will be able to reduce the taxes and the tariffs, and that may contribute towards the profitability of organization. And again, there are some intangible factors like the cultural analysis of the different countries, and then again the impact of retaining the global talent and their effect on the organizational performance. So this is a sort of thing which is most intangible. So students, these are some of the tangible and intangible reasons to be operated globally. Let's discuss now these reasons one by one. So the first reason to be globalized may be the reduction in cost, because foreign locations with lower wage rates can lower the cost. So most of the organizations are sometimes interested to operate in those countries where the cheap labor is available. So due to the advantages with respect to that labor wages, their profit margin can always be increased. So that may be one of the reasons to be operated globally. Then there are different international trade agreements like WTO, World Trade Organization, like NAFTA, that is North American Free Trade Agreement. And in these international agreements, there is always an encouragement for the different entrepreneurs to operate globally, so that they can operate with reduced tariff and taxes. So these are some of the reasons. That is the reduction in cost, that is the reduction in tariffs and taxes, that the organizations are keen to operate globally. Then students, one of the reasons for the globalized operations for the different organizations may be the locating facilities closer to the unique resources, because sometimes the unique resources which are being required for the production of your products and services may be cheaply and readily available at the particular location or at a particular country. So that is the reason for which most of the organizations enter globally, and they set their production facilities in that particular location or country. You can see that different auto design facilities are being installed in California because of the availability of technology and the other resources. Similarly, athletic shoe production is mostly done by the different manufacturers in China because of the availability of cheap labor there. And similarly, the different perfume manufacturing companies are being operated in France because of the availability of that specific flower which can be used in perfumes. So because of the availability of the unique resources in the particular location or country can be the very important reason to be operated globally. Similarly, sometimes the organizations see the qualitative factors and quantitative factors that why they should operate globally, and more specifically we can classify these characteristics as subjective and objective characteristics of the goods and services. If we talk about the on-time deliveries, then it is more objective factor, that is measurable, or quantitative factor. But if we talk about the cultural variables, so that is more subjective factor or more qualitative sort of factor. So in order to achieve these subjective and objective characteristics for their products and services, in order to provide the improved services and products to their final customers, may be one of the reasons to be operated globally. Then another important thing for this globalization trend is that the organization wants to interact with the foreign customers and the suppliers in order to avail the different global opportunities available in that particular country. So it is always good for the organizations to target these opportunities for the future growth of their organizations. Then students, there is another very important aspect with respect to the globalization. When we operate globally, you may have the different ideas, because you know the culture is different there, the customers' requirements are different there, then there are the different suppliers, and there may be the different ideas on the part of the human resource available in that particular country. So you can always cache those different ideas. You can always produce the different goods and services in order to meet the requirements of those particular customers. So in order to improve the operations through these newly generated ideas can also be the one of the reason to operate globally. Then again, as I told you, that one of the very important reasons for operating globally is to attract and retain the global talent. And again, if you are operating globally, and of course you may hire the different foreign personnels as your managers, as your workers, and that is a sort of diversified talent will give you the opportunity so that you can avail the diversified talent for the different purposes within your organization, and that may also help to innovate the different products and services that may better meet the customer requirements. Another aspect of globalization is that it offers better employment opportunities and the better growth opportunities and insulation against the unemployment. So you can always give the better employment opportunities not only to the personnels or the population of the foreign country in which you are going to be operate, but also for your domestic human resource, because you may also require the domestic human resources and the workers to be working there in the foreign countries, and you can always give them attractive salaries. So there is another important perspective of good employment and growth opportunities for the employees as well as for the organizations. Then again, if there is an underutilization of the different human resources within your organization, you can always relocate these human resources for the better placement in the foreign countries. So students, whenever any company wants to operate globally, it is very important for the organizations to examine and scan the culture of that particular environment, because culture is always different, you know, in the different countries. The attitudes and the behaviors are different there. So it is very important to study the culture of the people there, as well as the culture of working environment, so that you can prevail that sort of environment within your own organization. And there are different examples that if you are going to study the different cultures of the countries, then sometimes that may give you a very big success. And there are many examples that the organizations didn't study the culture carefully, and there were the losses to the organizations. So important is the cultural scanning and the cultural analysis of a particular country. And with respect to the cultural aspects, the punctuality, what is the punctuality pattern within the country, what is the pattern of lunch breaks, what is the particular environment, organizational environment or the other environment, then what are the intellectual property rights and rules there, then what is the trend of bribery, and what is the trend of child labor. So culture is actually the combination of so many factors, and you'll have to scan all of these factors, and especially those factors which can directly impact the organizational performance. So important is the cultural environment scanning. Then students, along with that cultural environment analysis, it is very important to study some other important economical, political and general environment trends within a country. And for example, what is the national literacy rate in that particular country in which you want to operate, then what is the rate of innovation and how the technology is being innovated, and after what time period that is being innovated. What is the trend of technological change in the overall industry environment, whether the skilled workers are readily available or not available, and what is the political stability condition in that particular country. So students, these are some of the factors you'll have to consider before operating in a particular environment. And again, the examination of the particular population, that what are the characteristics of the particular population, which age groups people are more, whether the aged people are more, or whether the young people or the kids are more in that particular country. So all of these important characteristics actually helps you to define the strategy for your own organization, especially with respect to that international operations management perspective. Then students, there are some very important issues in operations strategy, and especially with respect to the globalized environment. When you want to operate in some global environment, the first important issue is the research about effective operations management strategies. So students, you know, there may be the different operation strategies, like you can always use the cost leadership strategy or the differentiation strategy. You can always focus the different other strategies which may be targeted on the particular segment of the population. So you cannot define a strategy unless you have the research over the particular environment there. so important is the research, and you know, all the opportunities and threats are being identified after the proper scanning of the environment and after conducting a formal research in that particular scenario. Then again, we'll have to see the different preconditions for developing the effective OM strategy. We'll have to discuss the different limitations in a particular environment. Then again, we'll have to discuss the different other opportunities and threats in a particular environment, so that we can have the more effective operations management strategy in that particular environment. Then students, the dynamics of operations management strategy development is very important, and again the environmental scanning is directly related to this sort of dynamics. And when we discussed about the environments, I told you that the environmental scanning is the first and the foremost step for defining any sort of strategy. And unless we are able to scan the environment, and especially the dynamics of the environment, that how the different environments are being changed, and you all already know that there are some environments which change very quickly, like telecommunication environment or the IT environment. And the more quickly an environment change, the manager or the operation manager will have to be more vigilant about that particular perspective. And there are some environments which don't change so quickly, and that may require sometime decades to change that particular environment. And cultural environment and social environment is a sort of environment which may require decades for changing. But we are not talking about here about the change of the particular environment, but we are talking about that what should be our strategy if some environment is quickly changing or some environment is not so quickly changing. So these dynamics of the environment are so important for the development of your own operations management strategy. Then students, as I already told you that the basic purpose of operating globally is again to avail the different growth opportunities for the organization. And again, the primary and the ultimate purpose of this globalized operations is to increase the profitability, and most importantly to enhance the return on investment for your organization. And we'll have to target some very important factors in order to ensure this return on your investment. That is, we'll have to target the high product quality. Now this is so important that we'll have to maintain the quality standards in order to operate globally, so that the requirements of your customers should be either met, or most importantly they should be exceeded. So quality assurance and quality control aspects should be readily applied in the globalized environment. Then high capacity utilization, you should utilize your resources, whether these are the human resources or the physical resources, or financial resources or non-physical resources. These resources should be optimally utilized to attain the predetermined objectives of the organization. Then high operating efficiency, students, again is so important that you'll have to operate smartly and efficiently, so that the timely delivery of the products and the services may be made possible for our valuable customers. Low investment intensity and low direct cost per unit are some of the other characteristics for ensuring the return on investment, especially in the globalized environment. And again, you'll have to make sure about your investment that this investment will have a particular return in future, and you should always try to lower the per unit cost for your product. And that may be possible when you use the concepts of economies of scale, because now you are operating globally, and now you can take the better benefit of that concept, that is the economies of scale. And again, your profit margin should always be increased when you are operating globally, and when you are producing such large quantities for the whole of the globe or for the different countries. So class, these are some of the important factors which must be properly considered if you want to ensure the return on your investment. Students, this is the outcome of research conducted by some theorists, and they try to find out the strategic options which are used by the different organizations in order to attain the competitive advantage. And again, this research is being done with respect to that globalized operations. So you can see from these figures that there were 28% organizations who were able to attain the competitive advantage on the basis of their better and global operations management strategies. There were 18% companies who were able to attain the competitive advantage through the better marketing and distribution strategies. 17% were able to take the advantage of their momentum and the name recognition globally. Then 16% attained the competitive advantage on the basis of the quality and the service. Then 14% took the advantage on the basis of good management styles, and 4% took the advantage because of better financial resources. And there were some other reasons for the competitive advantage that were used by some of the organizations. But what is important in this particular figure, that is the operations management can always be a source of important competitive advantage for the organizations. And it is very important for the operations manager and the organizations to give due importance to this operations management, and especially the globalized operations management when you want to operate globally, and that may always be helpful to achieve the competitive advantage, and that competitive advantage will ultimately have the impact on the overall profitability of the organization. So important is the better operations for the organizations. Now students, there are important elements which should be considered in the operations management strategy. As I already have told you that cost leadership strategy may always be adopted when you operate globally. Then you can always have the variety of the different products, and you can increase the product line breadth in order to provide the variety of products to your customers. Then you may cache the technical superiority you may have. Then again, you may use the differentiation strategy, you may use the focus strategy, you may innovate your products in order to have the more demand of your products. Again, you can always take the advantage of location. You can use the different scheduling according to the particular environment in which you are operating. So these are very important factors, and most importantly, you should always make your operations efficient and flexible, which can better serve the requirements of your customers. That is so important. And if you consider all of these operations while operating globally, then of course you can always get the competitive advantage of your competitors, and that will again ultimately affect the profitability of the organization. Then students, again in the end, I would again like to tell you that what should be the preconditions for all of that strategies, and especially the globalized operation strategy. The first and important point is the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors and the possible new entrants into the market. So unless we are going to scan our environment, that may be the external environment, that may be the internal environment, and most importantly that may be the competitive environment, you cannot make a good strategy without the proper analysis of this environment. And especially you'll have to study properly the different strategies of the competitors and how they are operating in that particular environment, and how different you can operate in the particular environment. And again, you'll have to find out the strengths and the weaknesses of your competitors, so you can define a strategy in order to have the competitive advantage. So all this will be possible if you scan the environment properly. And again, your technological, legal, economic environment, cultural environment again is so important to define the global operation strategy. Then you'll have to again examine the product life cycle, that at what stage your product is and how long is the product life cycle in that particular environment, and accordingly you can define your own strategies. Then resource allocation, resource availability is again a very important point to be considered while you operate globally. Another very important point, students, that is the synergy or integration of the operations management strategy with respect to the functional areas and with respect to the company's own strategy is so important, because again this horizontal integration and vertical integration will create a sort of synergy, so that it will be so helpful for the organization to get the benefits of that globalized operations. So these are some of the preconditions which the operations managers should consider before entering any global environment for its operations. Students, there are 4 important international operation strategies which can be used by the different organizations. The first strategy is the international strategy. Now what we do in the international strategy, we try to export our products or services in some other countries, or we give the license to some other international company in order to sell your own products and services under the name of your own company. So this strategy can be quickly and easily being adopted by the organization. But the thing is, in this particular strategy, you cannot have the good local responsiveness considerations. That is, your considerations towards the local environment and the local conditions is less, because you are still operating in your domestic country, but you are just exporting your own products, and you are just giving the license to some other company to sell your products in some other country. So that's why the local responsiveness and the local requirements may not be 100% fulfilled. Another important thing, you may not have the cost reduction advantage in that particular strategy. Again, the reason is you are operating still in your own global environment, so there will be the least chances of cost reduction in that particular strategy. Another strategy which the organization can use, that is the global strategy. Now in global strategy, what happens, the organizations produce some standardized products for the whole of the globe, with the minor changes with respect to the domestic environments, but the major operating environment almost remains same. In this particular manner, what may be the advantage for the organization, they can cash the benefits of economies of scale. Economies of scale means because they are operating globally, they are producing their goods and services for the whole of the globe or for most of the countries. So there may be the advantages of economies of scale, that is your per unit cost may be much less in that particular strategy. So again, in this particular environment, the cross-cultural learning should be there, and in this particular strategy there is high degree of centralization, because again you are actually implementing the similar strategy across the globe with some minor changes. So in that particular strategy, again, as I told you, you can always achieve the economies of scale, and you can always have the benefit of lower cost, but you may not achieve the local and the specific requirements of your customers in that particular global environment. So this is the global strategy. There is another strategy which is set as multi-domestic strategy. Now what happens in multi-domestic strategy, we use the existing domestic model globally. In this particular strategy, we can have the franchise with some other international companies. We can always have the joint ventures, or we can always open our own subsidiaries in some other countries. So again, in this particular strategy, there is an increased decentralization, and what we do in this particular strategy, we are now fulfilling the local responsiveness and the local requirements of our customers and that particular environment. And but again, in this particular case, there may be the less chances for cost reduction, because again you have the similar existing domestic model which may be implemented globally. So in that particular strategy, you may have the better responsiveness to the particular environment, but the cost benefit advantages may not be fully attained in this particular strategy. Students, there is another very important strategy that is called as transnational strategy. Now in this particular strategy, what we do, we move our material, people and ideas across the national boundaries. So we have now our own setups in the different other countries in order to operate globally. Now this is the case in which both of your requirements may be achieved. That is, you may target your local responsiveness and the specific requirements of your customers in that particular country environment, as well as you can always increase the economies of scale in that particular case. So students, this is the transitional strategy in which both of these objectives can be attained. Again, there should be the cross-cultural environment scanning in that particular case, so you can successfully apply this transitional strategy in order to achieve the benefits of cost reduction as well as the benefits of better local responsiveness and the customer requirements. So students, up till now we discussed about the benefits of international or global operations management. We discussed the different strategies which can be used by the different organizations, and we also discussed that what elements should be considered by the operations manager when they want to operate globally. Now let's discuss about the importance of human resource strategy, and especially in the operations management scenario. The objective of the human resource strategy is to manage the labor and design jobs so people are effectively and efficiently utilized. So again, students, the most important objective of human resource strategy in any organization is the better and I would say optimum utilization of their resources, and these resources should be utilized in a way that the organizational predetermined objectives may be better achieved. And other than that, efficient and effective utilization, it is also important to design the job in a manner that will help the employees to be more motivated and to better achieve their organizational targets. So these are very important points which can create the commitment and trust in your working environment, so that an environment may be created in the organization in order to better achieve the organizational objectives. One of the very important factors which the operations manager should give the due importance in human resource strategy, that is the labor planning, that how much labor should be applied, or what should be the level of employment in your organization, so that your organizational jobs may be better done by the different available human resources. So they can be the different employment stability policies, and one of the approach in that particular perspective is follow demand exactly. Now it means that you'll have to have the employment level within the organization which can optimally meet the current demand for that particular organization. Now this particular approach matches the direct labor cost to the production, but this particular approach will incur the cost in hiring, termination, unemployment insurance and premium wages. It means that whenever you don't have the demand, you may have to terminate and unemploy your employees. You may have given the premium wages or the unemployment insurance to those employees. So in that particular perspective, by using this particular approach, you may incur the hiring, termination and unemployment expenses. Hiring expenses, again, in the perspective that if your organization have more demand, then again you'll have to hire the employees in order to meet that particular demand, and again there may be the more hiring cost. So in this particular approach, labor is treated as the variable cost, because your employment level will vary with respect to the particular demand in the organization. The other approach is the hold employment constant. Now in this particular approach, what we do, we will hold the employment constantly, and it is not being depending on the level of demand in the organization. This approach maintains the trained workforce. So in this particular perspective, it may minimize hiring, termination and unemployment costs, because now you are maintaining the human resource permanently or constantly in your organization. But there may be the disadvantage in this particular approach as well, that there may be the chances of there may be the chances of underutilization of the different human resources, because there may be the time when there is no more demand in the organization. So for that time period, again, your organization employees may not be fully utilized. So this is one of the drawback of this particular approach. And in this particular approach, students, labor is treated as a fixed cost, because again the cost of the employment is not being depending on the level of demand in the organization. Now the students, today in order to achieve the different organizational objectives, the organization can apply the different work schedules. And especially अगर आप different अच्छी organizations और multinational organizations के environments को देखें, तो पहले ये स्टाइल होता था कि आपने सुबह 9 बजे जाना है और शाम को 4 बजे तक आपका जो है ऑफिस टाइमिंग है. But now the most of the organization are applying the different sort of strategies with respect to that work schedules. And now that perception is now being changed, that you'll have to work 5 days a week and you'll have to work 8 hours a day. Now they are offering more flexible schedules for their employees, and they always allow the employees within, of course, the particular limits to determine their own schedules. Now for example, if you are required to work for 8 hours a day, it may be opted for the different employees that whether you want to come in the morning at 8 o'clock, or you may come at the afternoon at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, or you may also have the option to work in the night shift. So these sort of work schedules may also be provided to the employees, and again the purpose is the employees may have the different options, and according to your own adjustments and requirements, the different employees can choose their best option. So one of the purpose of this particular approach is again to give the more autonomy to the employees, and it will also be a source of motivation for the employees, and of course that will ultimately help the organization in order to achieve their objectives efficiently and effectively. Then again, different organizations offer the flexible work weeks, and for example, they can work for 2 weeks and then they can have the leave for 1 week. Again, the different part-time options may also be given to the different employees. And students, now there is also a trend that sometimes and in certain situations, your physical presence may also not be required by the organizations, and some of the multinational organizations are also using this particular concept, and they can always take work from the employees on the internet if the work nature is sort of like this. And again, that tradition of physical presence at your company place may not be required sometimes by most of the organizations. So these are the flexible schedules which are now being provided by the different organizations to their employees. And again, the factor is to motivate the employees and to give the more autonomy to the employees so that they can better work for their organizations. Then students, job classification and work rules should also be well defined for their employees. That is, it should be clear that who can do what and when they can do it. They should also specify under what conditions they can do it. So the different schedules of working and the way they want to do the work or they have to do the work should be clearly stated to the employees. In different organizations, there can be the union contracts after the proper negotiation between the employees and the top management. And again, the purpose is to achieve the organizational objectives efficiently and effectively. Then students, there are the different design options in the organizational environment, which means that the operations managers should specify the different tasks that constitute a job for an individual or a group. Now we can again use the different approaches like job specialization. Now job specialization means that a special job is being assigned to a person who actually have the expertise in that particular job. So he is more synthetic and most importantly analytical skills in order to perform that particular job, and he is actually the specialist in that particular job. So that is the concept of job specialization. Similarly, the organization can apply the job expansion and they can increase the responsibility horizontally or vertically for a particular job, for a particular human resource or the worker. There can be the psychological components like you can always provide the safety environment and better working conditions for your employees. So again, these are the important factors which can motivate the employees towards their working. Then always the organizations are interested in developing the good and self-directed teams so that they can have an environment of synergy within the organization and their aggregate output of something may be achieved. And again, they should apply the different policies and the rules in order to motivate the employees and in order to provide the better incentive systems for their employees. Then students, again, the job specialization, again I told you, is the job which may be assigned to a particular person who is specialized in performing that particular job, and it is also referred sometimes as the division of labor concept. And in this particular concept, we divide the different tasks among the different employees according to their own specialties in their particular job context. Then again, job expansion means adding more variety to the jobs, and the purpose of this job expansion approach is to reduce the boredom associated with the labor specialization. And now there may be the chances of boredom in specialization when someone is going to do a particular job again and again. No doubt he is a specialist in performing that particular job, but it is again the nature of the human being that if you do a particular job for a particular time period, then again you start boring with that particular job. So in order to reduce that boredom, you can always apply the different strategies like job enlargement. Now job enlargement is actually the horizontal expansion of a particular job responsibilities and authorities. That is, still you are doing the similar job, but your boss or your organization or the operations manager has expanded the responsibilities again horizontally. Job rotation is another important concept which may be used by the operations manager, and that is the periodic shifting of the different employees from one job to another. Again, that may help to reduce that boredom effect. Job enrichment again is related to job enlargement, but there is a difference. What is the difference? That job enrichment means the vertical expansion of the job responsibilities. In that particular concept, you are assigned the higher responsibilities for the same job you are actually doing. So This job enrichment is actually the vertical expansion of a particular job, and job enlargement is the horizontal expansion of a particular job. Similarly, the operations manager or the organization should apply the different approaches which can help the employees to have the more autonomy, and they may be given the more decision-making authority in different situations. So this employee empowerment concept is again very important to motivate the employees. Now students, again, as we have discussed that job enlargement is the horizontal expansion of the job, and job enrichment is the vertical expansion of the job, as you can see in this particular figure. Then students, there are some psychological components which the operations managers should consider while designing a particular job. Now, what are these components? These may be related to the work environments, that what safety environment you are providing to your workers, and what are the working conditions in which they are doing work in the organizational setting. So these conditions are so important to have a psychological impact on the workers, and if you are properly managing all of these psychological factors, it will ultimately help to increase the motivation level of your employees, and sometimes he will start enjoying their work in that idealized environment, and of course the ultimate impact will be on the profitability of the organization. There are some job characteristics which can always be again helpful to make a particular job more attractive. These characteristics are skill variety, job identity, job significance, autonomy, feedback. Okay students, let me discuss and differentiate these very important characteristics of a job. Skill variety means that how much variety is being required to perform a particular job, whether it can be performed by only a single skill, or the different skills may also be applied in performing a particular job. Now students, अगर आप कभी मोटर मैकेनिक को देखें कि वो अगर सुबह से शाम तक काम कर रहा होगा, तो उसके पास जो है डिफरेंट किस्म के कस्टमर्स आएंगे, और वो हर किस्म के डिफरेंट काम कर रहा होगा. It means there is a more variety in its job, and there will be the less chances of boredom in performing that particular job, in which there is more variety and more skills are being used by the worker. इसके opposite अगर कभी पेंटर को देखें कि वो उसने बस ब्रश पकड़ना है और वो पेंट करना स्टार्ट हो जाएगा. Now इस particular job में there may not be the much variety, so there may be the more chances to be bored by this particular job. So again, the operations manager should always be interested to have more skill variety in a particular job, so that there will be less chances of boredom in that particular job. Then again, job identity means that how much identifiable a job is. If a job is not identifiable for a particular person especially, then it may not give the a certain motivation level to that person. Then it may not give the certain motivation level to the worker. Again students, अगर आप कभी सिंगर को देखें कि sometimes ऐसा होता है कि सिंगर का जो सॉन्ग है वो बहुत ज़्यादा पॉपुलर हो जाता है, लेकिन उसका बेनिफिट किसको होता है? उस सिंगर को होता है. लेकिन उसके बैकग्राउंड में जो म्यूजिशियन है या उसके बैकग्राउंड में जिसने पोइट्री लिखी हुई है, उसकी जॉब इतनी आइडेंटिफाइबल नहीं होती. सो इम्पोर्टेंस इज दैट जॉब आइडेंटिटी, that if the operations manager is able to have the feeling for the different workers that his job is as identifiable as some other good workers, their motivation level will always be increased. Then job significance, that how much important is your job. Now again, if you consider an hospital environment, the doctor's job has more significance than the job of sweeper in a hospital again. But if you want to have the good working environment, again you'll have to have the feeling in the environment that whether it's the doctor or the nurses or the sweepers who are responsible for the cleanliness, which may be more important for the patients. So these jobs are as important as some other jobs. So this sort of feeling should be created by the operations manager in the environmental setting, so that their motivational level may not be lowered. The next important characteristics is autonomy. Autonomy means you should give the more freedom to the employees in order to find out the way in performing a particular job. So if you are giving more freedom, more independence and more autonomy to the employee, again of course within the particular limits, if some worker is being able to use that autonomy, that he may decide about the way he should do a particular work, then again his motivational level will be increased. Then feedback, again a good feedback as well as a negative feedback is again important in order to motivate the employees, and again good feedback will help him to further improve his performance in future. And the negative feedback is as important for the workers, so that they can improve their working in future, and they may not have done the similar mistakes which may have been done by them in past. Now again students, in an idealized working environment, these are sort of self-directed teams who are going to perform the different works, and finally they are being able to achieve the different organizational goals. So what is the purpose and what is the benefit of this working environment, and especially the team environment, is that you will always be able to have this sort of synergy, and of course the aggregate impact of the benefits will always be more when you are doing the team working. So the group of empowered individuals working together to reach a common goal is so important in the working environment of the organizations. It may be organized for the long-term or the short-term objectives, so you can always make the different teams for the achievement of the short-term objectives or the long-term objectives. It is so effective for the organizations because it provides the employee empowerment, and it ensures the core job characteristics, and it meets the individual psychological needs. So most importantly, you should be able to define the team working and team job so that it should have the different characteristics of job we just have talked about. Then again, it will help down to meet the psychological needs of the different individuals, and again most importantly, it will create a sort of synergetic environment in the organization, and your organizational objectives may be better achieved within this self-directed team environment. So this self-directed team environment actually helps us to maximize the effectiveness, and the managers should ensure those who have legitimate contributions are on the team. So it is very important that how you are selecting the team members in order to perform, or in order to, so it is very important to make a team and select the different members of the team, so that the relevant contributions of the different team members may be well achieved. It provides the management support, then it ensures the necessary training, and after the necessary training and support from the top management, as well as if you provide the proper financial and non-financial rewards to these team members, then these sort of factors will always be helpful in achieving the different objectives. And again, self-directed teams means that you should give the due empowerment to the team members, and the supervisory level should always be less, and we should always be letting the different employees and especially the team members, so that they can define their own way of doing the job, and they should define the way that how they can achieve the predetermined objectives of the organization. So this is the concept of self-directed teams. So students, we have just discussed about the benefits of team environment and the benefits of expanded job design, that is job enrichment, enlargement, job rotation concepts. So these concepts actually helps us to improve the quality of work life, that is the working environment. Then improved job satisfaction will be there. It will have the increased motivation, and ultimately it will affect the the organization's profitability, it allows the employees to accept more responsibility, and it improves the productivity and the quality environment within the organization, and then it will ultimately help to have the reduced turnover and absenteeism within the organization. Students, there should always be good incentive system to be prevailed in the organization in order to again motivate the employees. The organization can always offer the bonuses in the form of cash, stock options. The company may also offer the different shares of their company to their own employees. They can have the profit sharing system in which the profit earned by the organization may be shared among the different employees with respect to the better performance. Then gain sharing. Gain sharing means that you may decide about the rewards to be given to the employees according to the level of productivity achieved. So if you are going to achieve a certain production level or productivity level, you can accordingly distribute the different rewards among the different employees, so they will be more motivated in future. Then there can be the different plans like production rates plans, that is per unit production reward. If you are increasing more and more, then your reward will also be increased with respect to that production of the different units produced. Then there should always be the knowledge-based system to be prevailed in the organization, and the different compensation and incentives should be decided based on the performance of the employees, and most importantly the knowledge and the different skills the different employees have. So important is the knowledge-based systems, and of course it will again help the different employees to work more in future, and in the same way they can contribute towards the organizational objectives. So this good incentive system is always helpful for the organizations to have a sort of motivational environment within the organization. Then students, there are some ethical concepts which should always be examined by the operations manager. There should be the working environment which is fair environment and the equity environment, and they should always be able to have the idea before the employees that what is considered good and what is considered bad within the organization, and the different the relationships with the top management, organizational environment. Then again, equal opportunities may be provided to the different employees, and safe working conditions should always be provided. And again, this is the ethical requirement on the part of the top management and the organization, that they should always provide this equity and safe environment for their employees. Students, this sort of environment is helpful to work with government agencies, trade unions, insurers and employees. So for all of these stakeholders, the ethical environment is so important. So if the organization is being able to have this sort of ethical environment, they can always have good working conditions with the different stakeholders like government agencies, trade unions, insurers, employees, which are the most important stakeholders for any organization. So students, this is the end of our today's lecture. Today we discussed about the importance of globalized operations management. Then we discussed about the importance of human resources, the different human resource strategies, different incentive strategies. Then most important, the different characteristics of jobs and how we can design a particular job in order to better motivate the employees. So students, and wish you good luck.